Shalom from Israel to all of the Daystar viewers around the world. I'm Moshe Bar Tzvi, the producer and founder of Israel Now News. We at Israel Now News are dedicated to bringing you the full story and the truth about Israel from Israel. It's written in the Holy Bible when David said in Psalm 25:5, "Lead me in your truth and teach me, for you are the God of my salvation. For you I wait all the day long." And God says in Zechariah 8:16, "These are the things that you shall do. Speak out the truth to one another. Judge with truth and judgment to peace in your gates. And always search for the truth, and the truth shall set you free." John 8:31. I hope you enjoyed the program. God bless you from Jerusalem. Shalom, shalom.
Welcome to Israel Now News. I'm Yochanan El-Rom.
And I am Rebecca Rand.
In our top story, relations between the United States and Israel have deteriorated. A senior Israeli official has told Israeli media that Barack Obama is angry with Prime Minister Benjamin Netanyahu, and U.S. foreign policy will reflect his discontent. A member of the Israeli Security Cabinet said there is no doubt that President Barack Obama, if re-elected, will make Netanyahu pay. Last week, the United States announced that it will be drastically scaling back its participation in a joint military exercise with Israel scheduled for next month. The magazine reported that the U.S. decreased the number of troops to take part in the drill by 60%.
The Israeli newspaper Yediot Achronot reported last week that the United States sent assurances to Iran that it would not back an Israeli military strike on its nuclear facilities. The report stated that the Obama administration used diplomats from two different European nations to convey this message: the U.S. will not support Israel if they strike Iran, in exchange for Iran's agreement not to target America's strategic assets in the Persian Gulf. Iran has repeatedly threatened to attack American interests in the Middle East if there is a strike on its nuclear facilities. Hezbollah, Iran's satellite army in Lebanon, conveyed a similar warning. With more on that, we turn to Yochanan El-Rom.
Yes, Rebecca, Hassan Nasrallah, the leader of Hezbollah in Lebanon, has warned that they will retaliate against Israel and the United States for any action taken against Iran's nuclear infrastructure. He said that Hezbollah and Iran are in agreement. Retaliation will be huge. Iran will not forgive a strike against its nuclear facilities, and the Zionist entity, Israel, will not be the only target. American military bases in the region will be targets as well.
Both the United States and Iran will be holding massive war games in the upcoming month. The New York Times has reported that the U.S. will stage naval exercises in the Persian Gulf as a show of strength meant to intimidate Iran and force them back to the negotiating table. In response, Iran announced that it will also be holding major war games in September. In a press conference, Amir Mustavi, Tehran's head of strategic research, said the Islamic Republic will be testing a new drone as well as a new anti-aircraft system meant to replace their Russian-made S-300 missiles. According to Mustavi, Moscow has stopped supplying Iran with the missiles, and Tehran has been forced to develop an alternative.
The International Atomic Energy Agency has reported that Iran has more than doubled the number of enrichment centrifuges at its Fordo underground nuclear facility. In his weekly cabinet address, Israeli Prime Minister Benjamin Netanyahu said that this development proves that the sanctions against Iran have been ineffective.
Jordan has asked the United Nations for $700 million to aid refugees fleeing the violence in Syria. According to the official request by Jordan's planning minister, the Hashemite kingdom has accepted 240,000 Syrian refugees. A representative from the UNHCR said that many more refugees are expected to flee Syria in the days and weeks to come.
The Israeli government has launched a campaign to educate the international community about Jewish refugees from Arab countries. Israel's Foreign Ministry, the World Jewish Congress, and the Pensioners' Party have teamed up to tell the story of 850,000 Jews who were suddenly forced to flee their countries of birth when Israel became a state. After Israel announced its independence, Jews who had lived in relatively good conditions in Arab countries suddenly faced fierce persecution. Their property was confiscated, and many were forced from their homes. The new state of Israel absorbed these refugees while fighting for its very existence, when the same Arab nations attacked the Jewish state in the War of Independence. Some Israeli leaders feel that the issue of these refugees and their compensation must be part of future peace negotiations.
In a recent meeting with PA President Abbas, Mahmoud Ahmadinejad offered to mediate reconciliation meetings between Hamas and Fatah in Tehran. The men discussed the rift between the two major Palestinian factions and the conflict with Israel. Iran is opposed to a two-state solution and believes that Israel has no right to exist. Some experts have said that Iran will encourage Fatah to adopt Hamas's policy of refusing to recognize Israel's right to exist and to continue to fight for independent statehood through armed resistance.
The IDF has reported striking a terrorist center in the Gaza Strip after rockets were fired into Israel's southern Eshkol region. A spokesperson for the Army said Hamas is responsible for all terrorist activity emanating from the Gaza Strip, and we will continue to take action against attempts to harm Israeli citizens and IDF soldiers. While visiting a house badly damaged by a rocket, Israel's Home Front Defense Minister Avi Dichter said the current situation is intolerable and Israel will have to initiate a complete deterrence strategy to stop the terrorism.
3 Palestinians have been charged with the attempted murder of an Israeli family in Ra'anana. The men poisoned the food and beverages inside of a home that they robbed in an attempt to kill the family that lives there. The father, mother, grandmother, and 2-year-old baby unwittingly ingested the poison, as well as a police officer who arrived at the scene to investigate the robbery. All experienced injuries, ranging from minor to severe. The father's injuries were critical. He collapsed at the scene of the initial investigation and was hospitalized for more than a week. A 46-year-old Palestinian man confessed to the robbery and attempted murders, saying that he did it because he hates Jews because they're Jews.
Moshe Ofnik, the Israeli Oscar the Grouch, has become the spokesperson for war preparedness in Israel. The Israeli Defense Forces have begun a mass mailing of a pamphlet which describes how to prepare a bomb shelter, where to seek cover, and explains how much time will lapse between warning sirens and the impact of an incoming rocket. The friendly puppet demonstrates the position one needs to assume before a missile hits and encourages parents to have a family talk about a possible attack. Israel has recently increased the distribution of gas masks and protective gear to the public. The use of the popular Sesame Street character is meant to encourage responsible preparedness while hopefully avoiding panic.
IDF soldiers thwarted a terrorist attack last week due to the swift response of border guards near the city of Modi'in. The terrorist attempted to enter Israel with a backpack full of pipe bombs, and when he was denied entry, he hurled the bag at the border police. The bomb squad was quickly notified and the explosives were safely neutralized.
Maronite Christians in Israel are experiencing a revival of their religion and language. The Jerusalem Post reported last week that members of the northern village of Jish, which is made up of 65% Maronite Christians, are making a concerted effort to speak Aramaic, the spoken language of Jesus. The ancient language has been read but hardly spoken since biblical times, and it is the hope of this thriving Christian community to revive Aramaic so that it will become the spoken language of their people.
The Israeli Knesset hosted a very special delegation of American and Israeli war heroes this week. The Heroes to Heroes organization brings together American and Israeli soldiers who have been wounded in war. In his address, the Israeli Prime Minister Benjamin Netanyahu said, "This is a very moving moment for me because you are the soldiers of the greatest force for freedom in history." That concludes the news portion of our show. Please stay tuned for Ask the Source with Josh Reinstein.
Hello and welcome to Ask the Source. I'm your host, Josh Reinstein, and we're here on a beautiful day in Jerusalem on our rooftop studio. Our guest today is Tony Tam, CEO of the Atikva Company. Tony, thank you for being on the show.
It's my pleasure. Yeah.
Tony, you have 3 different companies called Atikva. One works with tourism, one works with specialty watches, another is bringing Judaica like taluses and shofars to Asia. Why do you think business is such a great way to support Israel in Asia?
Yeah, because I'm a Christian, but I'm a businessman, and in the whole world, it's very difficult. As a businessman, it's very difficult to promote Israel, and God gave me a wisdom to use the business model to promote Israel.
Now, are there a lot of people in Asia who stand with Israel? Because you don't hear about that a lot. You hear about people condemning Israel in Asia, but are there still people on the street who are saying, we love Israel and we want to stand with Israel?
In Asia, it's not so many. I'm a believer since '93, but in my church, never say and promote and teach about Israel. But since 2006, when I obey my mentor, go to Israel, everything is changed. So I think we need to use the business model to promote the Israel. It's very important.
One of the companies that you have, which is really your flagship company of Hatikva, is the watches that have the Israeli letters, Hebrew letters, on the watch instead of Roman numerals or regular numbers. Has that been a huge success for you? And if so, why?
Because I like to collect the watch, and all the watch there's Arabic number or Romance number. As a Christian, the Hebrew is very important. When we understand the Hebrew, the meaning of the Hebrew, and then we have more understand of the Bible. So in Isaiah chapter 2, 62 verse 7, God wants to set up the watchman day and night to pray to Him. So I decided to make a Hebrew number watch myself, so that everyone, when you look at the watch, and then you will remind you to pray for the peace of Jerusalem.
One of the companies of Hatikva is a tourist company that brings Asians to Israel. Are there more and more Asians coming to Israel these days?
In Hong Kong, not so many people come to visit Israel because many Christians feel that Jerusalem is a holy city. But God gave me another wisdom, and then I promote Israel as a non-religious place. Why in Hong Kong, many Christians, many people go to Europe, go to American, why they don't go to the Israel? Israel is a very, very special place. Like you can go to driving in Red Sea, or you go to the Red Sea, Dead Sea to swimming. So or maybe I can promote to the businessmen, and because Israel, there's a lot of business opportunity. So I use another way to promote Israel.
Well, it's very interesting. We just had the figures released recently from the tourism ministry. The first 6 months of 2012 is the largest amount of tourists that Israel has ever had, 1.7 million, and they say the biggest emerging market is Asia. Do you see in the future more and more Asians coming to Israel?
Of course, especially, so this month I've been 5 nations. I just come back from Los Angeles, now I'm in Jerusalem, and then I go to Taiwan and go to Indonesia. I go to everywhere to promote Israel. Especially, I believe that the whole China and Malaysia, Indonesia, the Muslim country, there were a lot of Christian businessmen is rise up, and then we go to visit Israel.
Now, you're the largest importer of Israeli Judaica in Asia. You buy the most amount of shofars and taluses and Kiddush cups, things of that effect. Is there really a market in Asia for Judaica?
I don't think it is a very big market, but it is wisdom from God. I just obey God to make it. So this few years, I already import 3,000 shofar, but I give away 2,000 to every church, to the church pastor.
One of the biggest things that was done is you actually gave a watch with Hebrew letters on it to, I believe, the finance minister of Indonesia. Made national news that he's wearing, as a Muslim leader, this watch with Hebrew letters on it. Can you tell us a little bit about that?
Wow, that's why this is a big testimony why I go to Malaysia. You know, Malaysia, it is the whole Arab country to persecute Israel. But 2 years ago, when I go to Malaysia, my friend bring me to 4,000 people, 200 churches together. There's a celebration. I just give the watch, Hebrew number watch, to the minister and chairman of Malaysia Chinese Association. But God make it very famous and all in the front page in the whole newspaper for one week. So in my spirit, I believe that Malaysia people, they cannot go to Israel because their passport, they cannot go to Israel. But I believe that God sent me as an ambassador. I go to Malaysia, and then through Hong Kong, they go to Hong Kong, and then go to Israel.
Tony, there are literally tens of millions of people watching the show. What message do you have for our viewers?
As a Christian, Israel is very important. Hebrew is very important. But as a businessman, how you can promote the state of Israel? Because in the whole world, many media, many newspapers, they don't say any good news about Israel. So I use the business model to promote Israel.
Tony, thank you for being on the show. And thank you for tuning in to Ask the Source. I'm your host, Josh Reinstein. Now back to the studio.
Up next, Shining Light from Israel.
Stay tuned for the ICEJ report from the International Christian Embassy of Jerusalem.
What makes the miracles of Jesus even more miraculous? Standing where they happened, in Israel. Come explore Jerusalem, where Jesus opened blind eyes. Visit the hills of Galilee, where Jesus fed the multitude. Stroll through Capernaum, where Jesus lived and taught and healed. To learn more about standing where it all happened in Israel, visit www.goisrael.com. Come visit Israel.
Have you ever wondered what happened to the lost 10 tribes of Israel? This is a question that has challenged Bible scholars and historians for centuries. Now, the Bible does tell us that as the Assyrian Empire came against the northern 10 tribes some 2,700 years ago, that there were members of the northern tribes who heeded the warnings of the prophets, and they fled south to Jerusalem and to the kingdom of Judea. Others who were taken into exile came back with Ezra and Nehemiah and rejoined the Jewish mainstream. And so we can say with confidence that the Jewish people we have with us today contain significant remnants of all 12 tribes. Yet there were many from the northern 10 tribes who were indeed lost to history, and the search for them goes on to this day. Now, the body that has the final say in determining who truly has Jewish ancestry are the chief rabbis of Israel, who sit here in the great synagogue in Jerusalem.
In the late 1970s, a few individuals from a small group located in northeast India began to research the origins of their religious traditions and their ancestry. Their research led them to discover an ancestral connection to Israel. Under Persian rule, their ancestors traveled through the Silk Route to modern-day Afghanistan, Tibet, China, and finally to northeast India, in the midst of Myanmar and Bangladesh. This particular group, called the Bnei Menashe, or Sons of Menashe, are believed to be descendants from the lost tribe of Manasseh. In the early 1980s, members of the group made contact with an organization in Israel expressing an interest in returning to their ancient homeland.
The chief rabbis have gone and investigated these people. They found that they still observe Shabbat. They still keep the kosher dietary laws. They still celebrate the biblical feasts. They still marry only within their tribe. And they still cling to the hope of returning one day to the land of Israel. Where does this hope come from? With the same Hebrew prophets who warned the ancient Israelites of the coming exile, also left them with the hope of return. The prophet Isaiah, for instance, in chapter 43, says, "Fear not, for I am with you, and I will bring your descendants from the east and gather you from the west. I will say to the north, give them up, and to the south, do not hold them back. I will bring your sons from afar, and your daughters from the ends of the earth." So when the prophet said, "I'll bring your descendants from the east," the Bnei Menashe clung to this hope for centuries, and the chief rabbis have now officially recognized them as having Israelite descent and approved their return to the land of Israel, and this is a modern-day miracle.
Many Bnei Menashe have already settled in Israel, and more are expected to come in September of 2012. The International Christian Embassy has pledged to sponsor the first flight of this new wave of Aliyah from India and hopes to sponsor more flights in the future.
The return of the Bnei Menashe, the sons of Menashe, to the land of Israel is one of the most exciting developments of our days. This is exactly what the Bible speaks about in Jeremiah chapter 30 verse 3, where God says He will bring back from captivity the sons of Israel, the house of Judah, back to their land to possess it. And we want to invite you to become part of this exciting end-time prophetic action of God and to place a financial seed into God's return of the chosen people to the land of Israel. Become a partner of the Christian Embassy and help us to bring the Bnei Menashe, the sons of Menashe, back to the land of Israel. We are your embassy here in Jerusalem. May the Lord bless you out of Zion.
That's all for this edition of Israel Now News. I'm Yochanan Elrom.
And I'm Rebecca Rand, reporting from our studio in Jerusalem. Please join us next week for all of your Israel updates.